now to kind of switch subjects, I want to touch on the nostalgia factor that has infiltrated snowboarding, and seeing Kemper Snowboards come back, seeing Mark Sullivan launch the Snowboard Project, a paywalled podcast where he's doing 3 episodes a day, or 3 episodes a week, and then he's going to go to 5 episodes a week, and he's trying to fund it fully through Patreon, which kudos for him for trying to do that. I mean, I think nostalgia is hot right now. It's a very big thing. You see it in our movies. You see how everyone's loving the 80s right now. Mm-hmm. And I love the 80s.
And the whole collector market is a thing now. Like, that's a legitimate thing in snowboarding now, where people want their old boards. They want that board that they owned in 1992.
Oh, yeah. No.
So the whole nostalgia thing has definitely cemented itself within snowboarding at this point, for sure.
But I kind of view Kemper as a cash grab.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see
I want to know what factory they're made from, because I reached out to someone and I couldn't figure... It wasn't who I thought it was for that price point, so there's only like 1 or 2 other factories that it could be, and they're not exactly reputable.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, so I don't know. The nostalgia piece of that is...
And that's the thing, like, Mark Sullivan... I listened to the first podcast of the Snowboard Project today, and I really wasn't overly impressed. It wasn't anything that I was super stoked on, or that I thought was, like, the greatest thing ever. You know, I was more like, okay, I watched it as, like, watching a pilot episode. But it was more like, I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this, and I'm like, cool, why don't we concentrate on what you're doing?
Yeah.
And also, like, he's coming out, like, at full-blown sprint. I mean, 3 episodes a week.
You need to establish yourself and figure out what your baseline needs to be before you just go full out.
20 episodes a month is what he's looking at.
How a lot. Like, we've been doing this for a long time, and we don't do that. That is so much content.
And he's not doing advertisers, and that's his big thing, is he's putting it all on Patreon and trying to go that way, which I'm like...
And that's the other thing, is we know how it is to not have any money really coming in for very much.
And
it's hard to do that with no money coming in.
It's very hard. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and like, there's no like ill will there, but for me, someone who edits 2 podcasts, like I always... When I'm editing videos and working on stuff and sending emails, I'm always watching a podcast on YouTube. I'm usually watching the CU podcast with Ian Ferguson and Pat Contry, because they're fucking nerds talking about retro video games. So it's a nostalgia podcast.
Right.
And they do 1 a week, I think, right now. And it took them 5 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
And they cover a gamut of topics. And like us... Like, remember when we launched TechCast, we were going to do 1 every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that's a lot of shit. It's just hard, you know, and, like, doing 1 a month is very easy for us. Like, we can just, you know,
hopefully, we'll keep going.
Yes, unless we get no views or listens or downloads or whatever.
And then we won't. We're not going to waste our time.
Yeah, then we'll just, I could spend 3 hours working on other projects.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but... It's this nostalgia, and I see, like, you know, the History of Snowboarding Facebook group, the Dig My Quiver. There's, like, all those Facebook groups, and I see all the people in there, and I'm like, man, why are you guys fucking living in the past? I'd be enjoying the present. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, snowboarding was not better when they hated us.
No, we already went over that point earlier.
Did we?
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't need to go back to that one. But, I mean, come on. We're an hour 45 minutes in on this thing. So
just wanted to reiterate that since we're talking about nostalgia.
Yeah, nostalgia. But that's the whole thing, is like this nostalgia factor. I mean, it's cool, and I respect it, but at the same time, I'm like,
I don't know.
What are you doing? What are you doing now? Yeah, like what are you going to do when you're on episode 50, 60, 100? Like, how do you? I know you're trying to do the people, the products, the personalities. You're trying to do everything. I mean, it's Mark Sullivan. He started Snowboard Mag. He did Yeast Infection. He created Tailgate Alaska. He did MountainOps.com, which he didn't really talk about that failed one, but
so he's got some clout. Like he's done.
He's been around. He's been around, but I mean, the fact that he's like, we're doing ad-free snowboard media, and we're the only ones that have ever done this. So I was like, no, you're not the only ones that have ever done this. Like, it was called 2007, 2008. Like, any of us that launched websites, blogs, whatever, we did it without advertising.
Yeah,
I did it for years, and the fact that in that podcast, I think it was like 6 times that it plugged the Patreon thing, and I was like, that's an ad, dude. You're advertising a membership.
Right.
I mean, granted, he's got perks, like he's giving away vintage snowboards, stuff like that, and he'll drive those people in. I think the giveaway for this month is Daniel Frank's unclaimed trophy from the U.S. Open or something. I was like, that's cool. I'd be down to get that and put it on the wall because it would be super funny to have.
Right.
But, I mean, I would, that, the Kemper thing, I mean, they post all these vintage photos on Instagram, Facebook. I just, like, where are you going to go in a year? Like, and, I told them, I was like, I want to review them. And they're like, reach out to me. And every time I reached out to them, I just go ignored. And I'm like, that's not good, man.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have someone review that stuff so
people know that it's real.
So, yeah, that they can know that it's real. So it's not like I'm getting some fly-by-night Chinese factory-made crap or it's made in someone's garage, like, dude, for all we know, it could be made by Munson. It could be made by Prospect.
Right.
It could be made by Gilson, for all we know.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things where, like, the price point's like $369 on everything, and they're redoing the vintage graphics, which, I mean, that's cool. Vintage graphics are cool and stuff, but this nostalgia thing, like, don't talk about what you've done. Talk about what you're doing going forward. And that's
nostalgia's good to pepper in.
Yeah, it's great.
It shouldn't be your core.
But it should not be what you're basing it on, because people's tastes will change. They will outgrow it. They will realize that they've peaked on it. I mean, it's like Stranger Things as a show is largely nostalgic. It hits all the right beats. If you're a child of the 80s and 90s or the late 70s through the 80s, it's the Goonies, it's Ghostbusters, it's The Last Starfighter. There's so much nostalgia and so many Easter eggs hidden in there. But the Duffer Brothers have said, we're only going to do 4 or 5 seasons. They know. And I've read the book that it's loosely based on, about the Montauk Project. And believe me, they can only go so far before they're going to go off the rails. So, like, they have to keep it doing that. And that's the whole thing with nostalgia, It's the same thing. Like, nostalgia is what killed the new Ghostbusters with the all-female cast. And you look at that and you see why Creed was such a good movie, because it did tie into the nostalgia factor. And you can see that in snowboarding. It's great when I see these re-release. Like, K2 did the Daniel Frank Whale.
Right.
And it sold out.
Yeah.
And it was a good board. But is it in the line this year? No. It was a one and done. Yeah. And that's perfect.
Nostalgia's there to hit some fan service real quick.
Yeah.
But it's real quick.
Yeah.
It needs to be quick.
Yep. You have to hit it and then move on. And where's your longevity? I mean, is this Kemper thing like a one season and done?
Right.
And,
or are they legitimately bringing that brand back?
Like, yeah, and the thing is like he bought the guy. It's run by a guy named Jib Hunt. I'm going to guarantee that he bought the intellectual property because it had lapsed on a trademark or a copyright or something, and the domain wasn't registered. So he probably bought the domain for like $3, $5, maybe $20 max. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Is like, is this just a nostalgia factor? Yes, and that's kind of where I just I'm okay with it. So